worry about it.
Okay, Dr. Monroe.
Okay, we call this meeting of the Winterville Planning and Zoning Board for July 20th to order. Welcome to all our board members, and we appreciate you being here. Do we have any requests for excused absences?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Willie Hines and Ms. Darlene Gardner both requested excused absences.
Okay, we're entertaining a motion to accept the request for excused absences.
I'll make a motion, Mike Weldon, I'll make a motion that to excuse the absences.
Robert Briley, and I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second to excuse Mr. Hines and Ms. Gardner from the July 20th meeting. Roll call for your approval.
Mr. Monroe,
Yes.
Mr. Killian,
Yes.
Mr. Briley,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Present.
Mr. Weldon,
Yes.
Ms. Crawford. Yes. Ms. Clyburn. Ms. Clyburn,
Looks like she's still on mute.
You have to unmute yourself, Ms. Let's see. There you go, Ms. Peggy. Try it now, Ms. Peggy. Try it now, Ms. Peggy.
I'm sorry.
All right, yes, we're just making roll call and your phone got muted, so.
Well, I'm present.
All right, don't change a thing. Leave it just like that.
okay, excused absence, your vote for Hines and Gardner be excused. Ms. Clyburn,
Ms. Peggy, we're asking for your vote whether or not to approve the excused absence request.
Well, she muted herself again.
No, Ms. Peggy.
She's unmuted now. Okay. Well, we have a majority. Can we still move on?
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah,
Okay. The next item is the approval of the agenda for July 20th. You had a chance to consider.
Motion to approve the minutes. Doug Killian.
agenda.
Head Clyde, 1 second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Roll call for your vote.
Okay, approval of the agenda, Mr. Monroe,
Yes.
Mr. Killian,
Yes.
Mr. Briley,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Weldon,
Yes.
Ms. Crawford. Yes. Ms. Clyburn, do you hear us now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, approval of agenda. Your vote?
Needs your vote, Ms. Peggy.
And there she goes.
She can hear us. I don't know what's. It's weird, Ms. Peggy. I don't understand it. that everybody?
Yes, that would be everybody.
Just give me a thumbs up, Miss Peggy. How about that?
What'd you say, Brian?
So we're I couldn't hear you. I don't know why, if we're losing you on that end. So if I think we can probably, if you just want to give a thumbs up if you're in approval for it, or you can say yes or no.
Would you just ask me to unmute? That way that works. Otherwise, nothing works for the mute and unmute.
Okay. We can hear you now. So do you approve the minutes?
Yes,
The agenda.
Yes.
yes.
Okay, next item.
Chairman, Mr. Monroe, could we go back and get her vote on the excused absences?
Okay. Ms. Peggy, we had a request for Mr. Hines and Ms. Gardner for excuse absent. We need your vote, yes or no.
Can't hear you.
Miss Peggy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, give me your vote on the excused absences, yes or no for
Why
allowing
don't I just give you a hand, just as a yes? Does that work?
Okay. Yep, that'll work. All
Okay,
right.
okay, yes, that's
Now
it.
we're good. Thank you, Dr. Monroe.
Okay. The next item is the approval of the minutes from the May meeting, which is included in your packet, emailed by Brian.
Motion to approve.
Rondé Fleming, second.
A motion by Doug Killian, second by Rondé Fleming. Roll call for your vote.
Dr. Monroe,
Yes.
Mr. Killian,
Yes.
Mr. Briley,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Weldon,
Yes.
Ms. Crawford,
Yes,
and Ms. Claver. Thank you.
And Tucker's.
did you get my wave?
Tucker, did you hear that motion?
Oh, you're on mute, Tucker.
Yes.
And was that a vote in the affirmative?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. We're ready for the new business. The F&A construction rezoning request.
So, let's go straight here. So, yeah, so we did have a submittal from F&A Construction for a rezoning request. So there was been talking with the developer and the consultant from Art Consulting Group. They have requested that we table this proposal until the August Planning Board meeting. I agree with that request because the way they submit it in its current form, there's no way we could ever, from a staff perspective, give a recommendation to approve. So at this time, we're not even going to, if it pleases the board, we're not even going to entertain looking at that proposal. We're just going to table it until they can come back with one that would be more acceptable to the board. Thanks.
Okay. Does that require any action on our part since it's a change? We approved the agenda.
Yeah, well, I would just, you've heard it now. The request is to table it, so I would take action on tabling it. So.
Okay, so we're entertaining a motion to table agenda item in the new business number 1, F&A construction rezoning request.
Robert Briley, so moved.
Doug Killian, second.
Okay, all those in favor, please respond to the roll call.
Dr. Monroe,
Yes.
Mr. Killian,
Yes.
Mr. Briley,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Weldon,
Yes.
Ms. Crawford,
Yes,
and Ms. Claiborne. Thank you. And, excuse me, Tucker,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll get that back before you guys next month. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, please.
Yes, Mr. Killian.
There is someone on the roster with an iPhone that I don't recognize. Could you help me out who it is, please?
Mr. Jones, is that pertaining to agenda item 2 under new business?
Greg, what I'm asking about, there's someone in our roster tonight for the meeting that I don't recognize. It's broadcasting from an iPhone. I'm just asking who it is, please.
Right, yeah, I'm asking Brian if that is like we had last month, someone that was coming to represent an agenda item.
I'm assuming it's probably an adjacent property owner. I'm not exactly sure. He's unmuted now. He can identify himself.
Yes, I'm an adjacent property owner. Thank you.
Okay, so that's
Can they-
item 2, Brian?
That was so. I'm assuming you were here for the rezoning, right?
That is correct.
So what we'll do is from our end, we'll keep the time posted out there, and we'll issue another notice to the adjacent property meeting. So you guys as adjacent property owners will receive another notification of the planning and zoning meeting next month. So you guys.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Brian, mute me
Yes,
back.
sir. All right. There you go. All right. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, new business agenda item 2, flood damage prevention ordinance amendments.
All right. So if you guys will remember back in 2015, when the town took over, shortly after the town took over building inspections, the town used to contract under the county, and the county would administer the floodplain regulations. But once we moved to having our own inspections in-house, then we shifted over that jurisdiction to our planning department. So with that, with us regulating the floodplain and the flood damage prevention ordinance, from time to time we have to do amendments. Those are basically based off what the state recommends. So from time to time, one, the state will come out with new language for the model ordinance, or two, they'll update the floodplain map. So as an ordinance, that ordinance always references the floodplain maps that are issued by FEMA and the state of North Carolina floodplain mapping program. So what we have to do is adjust ours accordingly, so everything's in accordance, so we're regulating the right maps that are out there at the time. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. So we're going to go over just this is nothing controversial at all. It's kind of just housekeeping. What we do is we'll get those, I'll say model ordinance a lot, but the model ordinance is from the state of North Carolina floodplain mapping program. So there's every floodplain ordinance in the state is based off that model ordinance. So there's certain language we're required to have, and there's certain language that we can have. Most of what we're going to look at is what we're required to have, and that's it. There are a couple little things that we have the ability to pick and choose from. We've done that on a few of them, but for the most part, it's just what we're required to do to actually be in compliance with the state. So as you guys know, nothing really earth-shattering here, but the purpose of our floodplain ordinance is to promote public health, safety, and the general welfare, and to minimize public and private losses due to flood conditions within those floodplain areas. And we do that minimizing public and private loss by regulating the type of construction that can go into a floodplain. Primarily in Eastern North Carolina, all you're going to see is the raising of the structures. You're not going to be allowed to build in a floodway or put fill in a floodway, but you can build and put fill in a floodplain. You just have to do it according to the regulations set forth by the ordinance. So I just want to give you guys a snapshot of Winterville. Obviously, this is the main part of Winterville, right in the middle of your screen. The two stream features you see on either side of the screen, to the left on the west side is Swift Creek, and on the east side is Fort Swamp. Those are our major water carriers in town, and that's where all our floodplain comes from. So we're very fortunate that we don't have a lot of floodplain to contend with, but there is some. So we do have a little bit that we, from time to time, we got to regulate some building going on in there. So that's where all of our floodplain regulations are going to be concentrated at. So you can see this is what we call the DFIR, the Digital Firm Index Rate Map. So you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, the map was revised just last month, June 19th, 2020. That index number reflects that something's changed within Pitt County, and those panels are all listed. The panels that changed are all listed right here in that index. Winterville didn't have one panel that changed, so we didn't have anything that changed within our territory. So really the only thing that we're looking at is that index number, which is reflected in the ordinance. So, and we'll talk about that a little bit in just a second. So most of the changes are just going to add a variety of definitions which just gives a little bit of clarity on updated terminology. It gives us some more definitions. There's a clarification to the actual violations of the ordinance, where in the previous ordinance it just said a misdemeanor. Now we're actually given it's going to be a class 1 misdemeanor, and we've upped the fine, or the state has upped the fine from $50 to $100. And the mean sea level, they stopped using that word, and to be more consistent, they're using NAVD 1988. That just means North America Vertical Datum. So that's the set of data they use to actually get the elevations for the flood levels that are established. So going back to what we just looked at with the firm map index, this section B, so it gives, this is really good for us because this limits the amount of time we ever have to really spend doing this. So like I said, every time it changes, then we have to update the ordinance. Well, this actually kind of makes that a moot point. This actually adds into the ordinance that if any of the panels change or if the index changes going forward, then it's automatically incorporated into the ordinance. So if the future revisions don't change a flood hazard dramatically, then it automatically becomes part of the ordinance, which is a good thing. It just saves us time and effort. And then it goes on to update some actual designations of floodplains. Really, the only thing we have to worry about in Winterville is AE zones. So all the other ones, A, AH, AO, A99, we're never going to see that. So all those are kind of based on tidal influences and velocities and all that stuff. All we're worried about is riverine flooding, which is going to be your AE zone. So with that, that's pretty much all I got for you. I did put a summary of those in your agenda packet. We can go through the whole ordinance and you can see how it looks, but it's really, really just exactly as I pointed out. That summary lists exactly what was changed, what was taken out. And at this point, I would just ask that the board would give a favorable recommendation to town council for when we take it before the hearing. But I'll be happy to answer any questions. You can see there our process will be obviously looking at taking a recommendation of town council September, after we would schedule a public hearing next month. So any questions?
No question, but I would like to just point out to the committee that in Brian's summary, he did denote changes in green and red, what was deleted and what will be added with regards to that to prevent from us having to go through the entire ordinance.
But like I said, if any of you guys want, the ordinance isn't that long. It's only about 20 pages. Not much more than that. We can run through it if you want to.
I have a question. Rondi Fleming.
Yes, sir.
I was just curious, when was the last time Winneball had a flood?
So if you guys are familiar with the term repetitive loss properties, there's a couple repetitive loss properties. That just means basically that a piece of property is flooded at least 2 times within a 10-year period. If you guys are familiar with Ray Crawford Drive, and I can kind of point it out to you on our map. So along Fort Swamp, back in this area, let's see, I think that's right. It's somewhere, it's in this area over here, and I can't really point it out. I think it's right in here, but the last time was Hurricane Irene, and then subsequent Hurricane Matthew. We had 2 of those properties that took water under the house. I don't think it ever inundated over the first floor, but definitely during Floyd, obviously, that was where most of Pitt County flooded that, but Floyd was our major one. But Irene and Matthew, we did have some flooding, but none that was catastrophic for sure.
Okay.
And just for informational purposes, 2 of those two properties that are repetitive loss on Ray Crawford have been approved for buyout. So from Hurricane Matthew. So hopefully we're going to have some funds available in the near future. It's a snail's pace when you're talking about hazard mitigation funding. So they've gone through the benefit cost analysis. They've identified those 2 properties as meeting that criteria, and they are, for lack of a better term, approved for that funding. Now we just got to wait till that funding comes through to get it done. So what will happen at that point in time, they'll actually buy that property from the property owners. They'll demolish the property, seed it. It'll go to open space, and then they'll deed it over to the town. So, and it'll have to be an open space from perpetuity.
Okay.
But if we didn't have a floodplain ordinance, we wouldn't be allowed to do that. So this floodplain ordinance, we're required to have it to actually, to get the benefit of that hazard mitigation funding. So.
If there's no question for Brian, I entertain a motion based on Brian's report for the ordinance amendments.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendments based on Brian's recommendation.
Rodney Fleming, I'd like to second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a proper second. Please state your vote based on the roll call.
Dr. Monroe,
Yes.
Mr. Killian,
Yes,
Mr. Briley,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Weldon,
Yes.
Ms. Crawford. Yes. Ms. Clyburn. Come back to her, Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Clyburn. You with us?
She raised her hand.
Okay, thank you.
That's big.
All right. Are we ready to move forward?
Sure.
All right. The agenda item 7, report from staff.
So I don't have much to report. Hopefully, we'll get things back to normal and start meeting in person soon. I do the upcoming things. I've said it for a couple months in a row now with our zoning ordinance with Senate Bill 355, Section 160D, to get some consistency among the zoning ordinances across the state. We'll be coming to you guys with that before we go to council. It won't be nearly as abbreviated as this one was. So this was just really a warm up for what we're going to have to do for the zoning ordinance. There's about I think the amendment summary right now is about 35 pages. So it's really lengthy. It's going to be in depth. But hopefully what we've put together for you is really easy to understand. Really nothing too hard. But anyway, that'll be coming. And I may be able to put it together before August. I need to get with the town manager to make sure she's ready to move forward with everything. But it is an overhaul of our zoning ordinance. So, but that'll be coming shortly. But other than that, that's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Comments from the board?
I have a question, Brian. The town council approved the housing project on Chapman Street that went down, was defeated in planning and zoning. I'm just wondering what the status is of that project.
So right now, I'm glad you brought that up. That's something I could definitely report to you guys. So as Mr. Killian did state, that the council did a vote to approve that rezoning conditional based upon the retirement community. The ball's in their court at this point. So they've got their zoning. They haven't submitted any site plans, but once they do, I'll keep you guys abreast of the situation and where they're at on it. But at this point, the ball's just in their court. So that's all I can tell you.
Thank you.
Yes, Ron D. Fleming. Mr. Jones, did you ever go over and talk to us concerning A&E Winneball, and such as the index number reflected in the ordinance? You said you were going to elaborate. Did you ever elaborate on that?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure I understood the question. Were we talking about the floodplain stuff, or?
Yes, you had mentioned the index number is reflected in the ordinance, and you say you were going to go back and elaborate on that. I don't know, it's just a piece of what I heard. I'm not sure if you had talked about it.
Sure, no, so where we talked about that section was a section where I was saying the ordinance has to reflect the index number. So now the way the ordinance is written, we don't have to come back and amend the ordinance every time that index number changes. So anything after January 1st, 2021, that anytime it changes, that becomes part of the ordinance automatically. That's basically all I was saying.
Okay.
So basically what the ordinance does, it regulates what the maps dictate. So every time that changed, it would make the ordinance outdated. So you'd have to go back and change the ordinance to keep up with the maps. But now they've just made it where every time the index number changes, and the caveat is to make sure that you don't change substantial floodplain area. So if you took on a huge chunk of floodplain, then you would have to come amend the ordinance. But if it's just the index number changing, you're fine. So it takes that housekeeping issue away. It just automatically does it for you.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Are any other comments? Okay. There
Yep.
be no.
I got one, Greg, sorry.
Okay.
Brian, we had, when we did this comprehensive land use plan, we talked about one time about getting members of the planning and zoning a hard copy of it, a laminated copy. Is that still in the works?
I've got them here in the office. I actually got Miss Peggy hers. But yeah, I'll be happy to, if we can work it out after COVID and try to get them out to everybody. Yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, one more time. Any other comments?
Nope.
All right, there being no other comments, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Robert Riley.
Second, Ron D. Fleming.
Okay, being moved and properly second. Please vote your choice.
Dr. Monroe,
Approved.
Mr. Killian,
Yes.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Weldon,
Yes.
Ms. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
that's it. Thank you.
Guys.
Already.
Bye.
Let me put all the stuff there. Okay.